everybody. Welcome to the Broward Center's Broadway Chat Series. My name is Tammy Holder, and we are delighted to have you with us on our regular Wednesday night Broadway Chat. Joining me tonight is the fabulous...
Hi, everybody. I'm Tim Maines. Welcome back.
All right. Thanks, Tim. So last week we had a really fun guest. We had Alex Weissman, who's currently, he's not anymore. He was in the Broadway production of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. And we learned last week that he had 4 days left before he had to, before Broadway went dark. So we had a ball talking to him about his journey with that whole show. So we have a fun guest tonight. Tim, who we got coming up tonight?
Wow, we are in for a real treat. We are joined tonight by Brynn Williams, a very talented performer. She made her Broadway debut at the age of 12 and has been working ever since. She's been in shows like 13, Spongebob Squarepants, many others. So we have a lot to talk to her about tonight. Really exciting. I want to remind everyone watching, if you have questions for Brynn throughout the show, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll try to get to some audience questions as we talk to her. So Tammy, what do you say? Should we bring Brynn in?
Let's do it. Give a big Broward Center. Okay. Welcome to Brynn Williams. Woo! Hi, Brynn.
Wow,
hi, how are you?
Welcome. Thank you so much for taking your time to join us. We at the Broward Center all welcome you here. How have you been doing? What have you been up to?
I've been doing well. I am quarantined in New Jersey, and I am currently working on a virtual musical theater festival, which is a lot of fun.
So tell us about that. What is that all about?
Sure. So these two guys, Richard Allen and Taryn Gray, they wrote 4 different musicals, and they decided that they wanted to put them out virtually. And so from July 7th through the 10th, every day they're going to show a different musical. And I am in Freedom Riders, which is about the freedom rides of 1961 to desegregate interstate bus travel. And also Legendary, which is a completely original story about a ghost rocker who comes back to help an upcoming musician. So it's great. The tickets are $10 per show. And all the proceeds go to Broadway Cares, Equity Fights AIDS, and Broadway for Racial Justice. So it's really cool. I get to perform and benefit some amazing charities as well.
And we put the link to that in the chat. We'll bring it up on the screen right now. And we were chatting a little bit earlier about how it's different for you to perform as a performer in this virtual environment. So you tell our viewers a little bit about what that's been like for you.
It is. Well, on stage everything is out of my hands except for the things that I actually do. But here, I'm actually in control of everything. I have to play my own music. I mean, I sound so full of myself, but I have to play my own music. I have to work my own lights. I have a ring light.
Yes, ring light.
And it's a different kind of energy. So I was saying before, there's this episode of Top Model where Tyra tells the women walking down the runway that they need to create their own wind to make it look like their hair is blowing. So the models have this different way of walking. And performing in my bedroom without a big, huge audience, it's a lot like that. I have to create my own wind. So I'm learning how to navigate that.
Well, that is awesome that you're getting to keep up your craft even during these changing times. So good luck with that. Hopefully some of our viewers are going to be able to attend your virtual show.
That would be great.
Yeah. So now let's rewind back to when you had an audience. What was your last show that you were working on?
The last show that I was working on was I was in the first national tour of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory playing Violet Beauregard.
So were you a fan of the movie before you did the show?
Oh, absolutely. Growing up, I wasn't allowed to listen to the radio because my mom didn't want me picking up bad words or bad messages. So my entire music education came from like Sesame Street, Barney, the Muppets, and all of those movie musicals. So a lot of Disney, but Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, it was one of the big ones. And so I loved it. I can quote the movie start to finish. And so when I found out I was playing Violet, I was the most excited. And I wasn't allowed to chew gum growing up. So I learned how to blow bubbles with my bubble gum.
I
So I'm
love it.
just going to ask what your favorite part of playing Violet is. I'm not sure if it's that you get to chew gum, but what are some other highlights of why you enjoyed playing that role?
I loved getting to tour the country. It was my very first tour. But as far as being on stage, Violet has this really, really fun introduction number called Queen of Pop, where she talks about why she chews gum and why her parents gave her gum, and then how she came to get the golden ticket. And it's this really bright, flashy dance number, and it's completely presentational, which is different than most musicals where there's the fourth wall or you're singing to someone, and that I was singing directly to the audience. So I got to do that, and I got to expand and blow up every night. So that was the most fun.
Not too many people can say that, right?
Not a lot. I was fortunate.
Yeah. And so before that, you were on Broadway in Spongebob Squarepants.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us about the role that you played, or roles that you played in that show, and what that experience was like for you as a performer?
Sure. In SpongeBob, I was one of the female swings. So there were 5 swings total, and there ended up being a 6th swing, who was our vacation swing. And so I got to understudy. I covered the entire women's ensemble, and I also understudied Sandy Cheeks and Pearl Crabs, and I also covered Mrs. Puff. And I think the last time I was a swing was when I was 9 in a production of Annie. And being a swing, it is just a completely different skill set. I think everybody should be a swing at least once in their career, just because it's so important, and swings work so hard, and they are vital to the show. And there was one performance where we had a lot of people out, and I ended up doing a split track for 2 men. So I played 2 roles that I had never even touched before with like maybe 3 hours notice.
Oh, that's amazing. So Brynn, for some of us who are watching, explain a little more what a swing is and how a swing is different from, say, an understudy.
Sure. So a swing is like an understudy, but for the ensemble. An understudy will cover the lead role. So that's in SpongeBob, that's your SpongeBob or your Patrick or your Sandy or your Plankton. A swing covers all of the ensemble members that you see dancing around, and that might not necessarily have names or lines. And an understudy is 9 times out of 10 in the show, in the ensemble. A swing isn't in the show at all. They wait off stage, backstage, in their dressing rooms, or downstairs, just in case.
Wow.
And that's also different from a standby, because a standby is like an understudy who's not in the show, but a standby doesn't have to be at the theater. They just have to be in a general radius of where the theater is so that they can get a text. I always say being a swing is like waiting for 6 months as Peter Parker, and for 1 hour to be Spider-Man, only to be told that they need you to be Batman that day.
Nice. That's a great way to put it. I love that.
So of all the roles and tracks that you got to play in that show, do you have a favorite that you experienced?
Probably when I went on as the 2 men, I got to play Gary the snail. I was a huge SpongeBob fan growing up, of the TV show, and I got to sit on the edge of the stage and play Gary and do my meows, and that was the craziest experience. I had like an outer body experience where I was like, I am on Broadway getting paid to play my favorite SpongeBob character.
There you go.
Bizarre but fun.
That's so fun.
Another thing that I find really interesting about that show is the music and how it was written by a bunch of different artists. I think the orchestrator was the same, but can you talk a little bit about the music of that show, and as a performer, what was it like to be in a show written like that?
Sure. So what our director, Tina Landau, discovered upon studying the television show was that SpongeBob has a lot of different themes in terms of the one day they could be playing like a country song, and then the song that they sing will be a hard rock song. And so she wanted to reflect that in the show. So we had composers. Every song was written by a different composer. And so we had David Bowie wrote a song, John Legend wrote a song, Sarah Bareilles, Brandon Urie from Panic at the Disco. And then the man who orchestrated it all was Tom Kitt, who wrote the music and won the Tony for Next to Normal. So it was such a fantastic experience, because when you audition for a show, they'll say, okay, we want to hear a Broadway standard, or we want to hear a folk country song or a pop rock song. But for this, Tina said, what do you have in your book? And it was one of those crazy things where I was like, oh, okay, sure. And so for my audition, I went through all different kinds of songs. I was auditioning for Sandy, so I auditioned with a country song, but in that audition, I sang a country song. I sang I Have Nothing by Whitney Houston. I sang Your Daddy's Son from Ragtime.
Oh, wow.
I sang so many different songs, and I left that audition and I was like, what is this show going to be? What is this? But it was really cool. And as amazing as all of the different composers are, and they're legendary composers, I think that not enough credit is given to Tom Kitt for orchestrating everything. And his job was to take all of these different styles and to make it keep the essence of the original source material, but still make it cohesive. And that is no small feat, especially when you're dealing with the different instruments and different tempos sung by different people with different vocal types. And it was crazy, but it was the coolest thing to watch.
That's so fun. Awesome. So that was SpongeBob. Now let's rewind all the way back to the beginning. We actually have a question here from Candace. How did you get started? Which I think is a great segue into going back to your Broadway debut. As I said at the intro, you debuted on Broadway at the age of 12.
Yeah.
Talk to us. What show was that? What was that like as a 12-year-old to debut on Broadway?
So I auditioned, it was for Chitty, Chitty, Bang, Bang. And I went to an open call audition. So I had an agent, but my mom used to take me to all of the open call auditions just so that I would have practice auditioning, just so that I wouldn't get in there and get nervous. The more you do it, the better you'll be at it, kind of thing. And for my first audition, I went in there, and it was my first Broadway audition with the standard audition format, where you go in, you take your book, and you hand it to the accompanist, and then you stand. And so I did everything wrong. I walked in the room, I face planted, I jumped up. I was like,
oh no.
And then I went all the way up to the table, and I was like, hi, my name is Brynn, nice to meet you, which you're not supposed to do. There's like they love that you're there, but they want you kind of away. And I went up to the accompanist, and I handed her my sheet music, and I proceeded to sing for Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, which is a very legit sounding thing. I sang the Christina Aguilera rendition of Reflection.
There you go. Yes.
As you do for a musical that originated as a movie starring Dick Van Dyke. So
perfect.
So by the grace of all of the theater gods, I got into that show, and it was really cool. Our producers were the Barbara Broccoli and East of Doheny, who the family, they owned the rights to the James Bond films. And so they treated it like a movie set almost. So we would go in, and we had like craft services. They brought us ice cream every week. I mean, it really was the best show to make my Broadway debut in. We had 50 cast members. Counting 13 kids and I believe 15 dogs.
Whoa.
And we were in what is now, they've changed the name of that theater so many times. Then it was the Hilton Theater, but now I think it's the Lyric. It's where Harry Potter and the Cursed Child is.
Okay.
So we were in that theater, and it's one of the biggest. And I got to make my Broadway debut in a show that starred some of the best Broadway people I have ever, Broadway legends. So we had Raul Esparza and Aaron Dilley and Jan Maxwell, the late Jan Maxwell, before she passed away. It was so cool. I walked in the first day of rehearsal, and I signed in, and I turned, and Chip Zion, who played the baker in Into the Woods, was right there. And I was like, so it was the coolest, most amazing experience to start off my Broadway career.
And then after that, you were in a show. What was your second show on Broadway?
My second show, it flopped, but it was called In My Life.
And during that show, you received a special recognition. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
I did. So I won the Legacy Robe. So back in the late 50s, an ensemble member had a friend opening up in another Broadway show. So I think it was, he was in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and sent it over to his friend who was opening up in Call Me Madam. But what he did was he took one of the dressing robes from his ensemble member, and he put a rose from the show on the robe and sent it over to his friend. And his friend added a piece from his show and then sent it on to the next show. And that created the Legacy Robe. And it is, so the tradition has evolved, and now it's given to the ensemble member with the most Broadway ensemble credits. And I won it when I was 12, and I hold the record for being the youngest person to ever win the robe.
Oh, that's amazing.
So what did you add to it? Can you share?
Sure. It was, well, so now instead of an actual piece from the show, you make a little square, almost like a quilt, and you add that onto it. And since our show was about a great many things, but lemons were a central part to it. So it was on my square, it was a big lemon, and I had the whole cast sign it, and then random, almost inside jokes from the show that no one else would get. So it was a fun one. It was really cool. And the person who was at my ceremony for In My Life won the robe for Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Oh, cool.
So it was fun.
And what was just life like as a kid, being a working professional actor on Broadway, but also being a 12-year-old kid? What was it like?
I had great people around me. So our child wranglers were very well versed in Broadway and in wrangling in general. So they were great about having little snacks backstage for us and toys and things that we could play with. And I always say that being on Broadway is not much different than doing a dinner theater production or even a school show. You have your director, you have your choreographer, you have your sets, everybody trying to learn their lines and coming together to put this show up. But the difference is that the stakes are higher because people are getting paid. It's not just a passion, it's also a livelihood. But I loved being a child performer. It was really it's something that I wouldn't trade for anything in the world. I always say I didn't lose out on experiences, I just exchanged them for different ones. My prom was my opening night.
Yeah.
My graduation was when one show closed and I got to go to another show. So it's just a different experience. It's not greater or lesser than, it's just different.
We have another audience question, and this is kind of in the veins of being a young performer. Next show we want to talk about is your experience in 13. So this was a show that kind of made history as the only show as a full teen cast and band, correct?
Right. It was really fun. Jason Robert Brown is a genius. There is no other way to put it. He is an absolute genius. And he was unique in the sense that every other show that I did, everyone was very aware of dealing with kids. So what I mean by that is if something didn't work, a director would change it and say, okay, well, let's try it a different way. Oh, you can't hit that note. Well, let's try something different. But Jason Robert Brown said, no, you can do it. You're gonna do that. And it was that way with the cast and with the band. He didn't dumb things down to a kid level or a teen level. He just said, this is the material and you're going to learn it. And then if there was something crazy, so at the same time, he was very, very aware of the challenges that come with a cast that is collectively going through puberty. So if there was a moment where one of our boys' voices were changing, then he would say, okay, well, you can't help that. So halfway through the run, one of our guys' voices started changing, and Jason came in and said, okay, so here's what we're going to do. You're going to switch harmony with him. In this part, you're going to sing this alternate melody, and then he would send us on our merry way. But he believed in us so much and didn't alter any of the material. And he's still such a force and very protective over all of us. He keeps up with all of his different 13 kids, and it's really great to see.
And, you said you were in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. There were all these, Broadway legends, obviously a lot of adult performers. Now you're in a show with just teenagers. How was that different? Rehearsal process, backstage, on stage? What were some of the differences? Could you feel it?
Oh, I definitely felt the differences. Well, for one thing, by the time I had gotten to 13, 13 was my fourth Broadway show. And a lot of my cast was making their Broadway debuts. So there was a lot of explaining of things that where when you're on a show working with adults, it's a lot of trial by fire. They say, all right, so this is the choreography and out you go. You're going to do Broadway and Bryant Park. Be here at this time. In 13, they were very aware of most of the kids making their Broadway debut and also just being new to theater in general. So they were great about explaining things and explaining why things happen. And, during tech, they don't tell you why you have to stand in one spot for 3 hours. They just say, hold, and then they're quiet, and then you wait. Whereas in 13, they said, okay, we're about to go into tech, and it's going to be long, it's going to be tedious, bring snacks, bring a blanket, bring books, bring things to do. And so, although it was my fourth Broadway show, I learned a lot about Broadway from that show, about the why. So I knew the what we were doing, but I didn't quite understand the why. And 13 gave me that. But it was so fun. It's a different energy when you, as a kid, if you walk into a building full of adults, you feel like a kid. You feel not necessarily inferior, but you're aware of the power difference between being surrounded by adults. But in 13, we outnumbered the adults by a lot. And so while we were still respectful, it's different walking up the stairs and walking past dressing rooms and poking your head in and saying hi to your cast members because they're all your age. It's like high school or like middle school.
That's so cool.
And you talked about how doing shows on Broadway, similar maybe to a school show, but the stakes are really high. So how did it feel as a young performer, knowing that all of these adults at very high stakes trusted this show to you and your fellow castmates? Did it give you confidence? What was that like to know that they all believed in you?
was kind of an indifferent feeling. I don't know that it actually. I think I feel it more now as an adult than I did then, because then I was functioning on teenage confidence and optimism. That's, well, of course they believe in me. I booked the show. Of course I booked the show. I'm good. So it was like, this is my job. This is just another show. So I didn't even feel the weight of it being Broadway's first all-teen cast and band. It just was. It was important because every show is important. And it was different because the people involved were different than any other show that I had worked with. So I have a greater understanding and a greater appreciation for it now, looking back. You never realize how cool something is when you're in it. It's always after the fact that you say, wow, I can't believe I did that.
So Broadway debut at 12, you've been working ever since. You have all this experience. Looking back, how did you prepare to be ready for that moment? Where did you grow up? Did you take classes? And what was your training and experience before you began this really incredible career?
So I grew up in Maryland. I spent most of my life in Maryland, and my mom was a performer. She danced with the New Jersey Ballet all growing up, and when she and my dad got married, my dad was in the Navy, and so we moved around a lot. When we settled in Maryland, she was at home with us, me and my siblings, a lot of the time. And so she decided one day that she wanted to go and perform again. So she found a local dinner theater that was doing Big River. And the director said, oh, hey, by the way, I need someone to play Betsy. It is Alice's daughter. I need someone to play Alice's daughter. A black girl to play Alice's daughter. And my mom, who didn't really know a whole lot about theater, said, oh, well, I have a daughter. She's never done anything like this before, but she's, cute and well behaved. Not realizing that role is usually played by an adult. And so I was 5 years old, and she brought me in to audition, and I sang Loverly from My Fair Lady. And I had no sheet music. The person who went before me just happened to sing that song. And my mom was like, she's never sung with sheet music before. I don't know how this is going to go. And I was like, oh, no, I'm okay. And so I sang it, and I came in at the right point, and I was comfortable, and I did that show. And I fell in love with it. And after it was done, after it closed, I said, Mom, when are we doing the next show? And so I just kept performing. So a lot of my experience and training comes from on-the-job learning. So I credit my very first director with that a lot, because she, like Jason Robert Brown, never let me believe that I couldn't do something because I was too young. And then if something wasn't working, then she would change it. But, and my mom was she's a very talented vocalist. And she would sing, and she would listen to me, and she would go, no, that doesn't sound right. Try it again. That doesn't sound right. Try it again. And she taught me that the voice is a muscle, and that only I know how I'm feeling. So if it feels wrong, it probably is. And push yourself to your limits. And then adjust it, and then try to figure out what works and what doesn't work. So I'm pretty self-taught in terms of a lot of my training and learning on the job, which is rare, and I wouldn't recommend it. But
well, speaking of recommendations, Tim and I both work in the education department at Broward Center, and we have a lot of students who aspire to be just like you, to make their Broadway debut at 12 and have an amazing career. What would be some advice that you could offer those students?
A couple of things. One is, we have this amazing tool of social media and the internet. So use the internet, learn about all musicals, not just Beetlejuice and Mean Girls. Like, go look back on old Tony performances, and you can find amazing audition songs from there. Also, these two things are going to sound a little contradicting, but if you are the best one in the room, you're in the wrong room. So always put yourself in that position where you can learn. and where you can take whatever is your weakest area and make it stronger. And then focus also on what makes you special. Everybody has something that they can do better than anyone else. I don't care what it is. Everybody has something that they can do better than anyone. And so don't lose that, because there will always be a show. There is a show to showcase that. So don't spend so much time trying to be like everyone else that you forget the amazing qualities that you have.
That is great advice, Brynn. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we are at the end. Time flew. We didn't even get to talk about probably half the shows that you've been in, but this was a really wonderful opportunity to just hear your story, hear your advice, your insights. Thank you so much for being a guest with us. We really appreciate you coming on by Broadway Chats.
Thank you. This was so much fun.
Yay. Good luck with your festival. Again, we throw that up on everybody check it out. There you go. Make sure you check out Brynn's very exciting new project. Best wishes. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. So take care. Good. Thank you, Brynn. All right. She was great.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was really amazing. So tonight, friends and viewers, we are gonna this is gonna be the last Broadway chat for a while. We're gonna take a little bit of a summer hiatus. Tim and I are focusing and developing some really cool online virtual intensives. We did one in June. We have another one coming up in July, the week of July 13th. It's a 5-day virtual Broadway intensive where students come in and they explore different aspects of being a Broadway performer, and then meet and have class with great performers just like Brynn, who we had tonight. So while we won't be here next Wednesday night, we are going to be back soon. So we'll miss everybody, but thank you all for joining us for tonight and for all of our Broadway chats up until now.
And if you miss us during our little hiatus, we have all of our episodes saved on the Broward Center Facebook page, so you can go back and rewatch your favorites or watch some that you didn't get to catch live. So please don't be a stranger to those videos and to us, and certainly spend your time catching up with some of our amazing guests that we've had. And we can wait to return after our little summer break. So thank you all very much for watching all of our episodes, for watching tonight, for your comments, for your support. And thank you also to Bank of America for their support of Broadway at the Broward Center all season long. We couldn't do it without them, without all of you. We really appreciate you.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.